to middle schoolers at FWAFA and at what cost? And Ms. Bean, I'll turn that to you.
Okay. So Coach Kennedy is a national speaker that has traveled across the U.S. speaking about his life and his experiences. He is well recognized as someone that works with kids and was in fact literally a high school coach for many years. And he's also someone who had a lot of adversity when he was growing up and therefore was not only bullied himself, but a bully as well. He understands what that is all about. He happened to be here that weekend for a variety of reasons. The day before, he spoke with a bunch of high school students for various Fort Worth schools that were here. And then he went to an event that night to speak. But it was somebody that was here that we had the option of getting for absolutely no cost to Fort Worth Fine Arts and Academy of Fine Arts. And so because he had some major impact in terms of going to the Supreme Court, and because he had some artistic roles and that he actually had a screenplay made about his life and a movie made about his life, I thought, well, that affects, and he's good with kids, that would be somebody that the kids might relate to and enjoy hearing from. And brought it up to Dr. Perkins, who said, well, that could be interesting. She thought about it and she said, but let's not wander into, honestly, the religious perspectives on it, or even particularly the First Amendment. She said, but we have a real problem with bullying in the middle school. Would he be willing to talk about that? So I went and asked him, and he said, yeah, he'd be willing to talk about that. And so that's in fact why he came. A great speaker, knows and understands kids, and absolutely free, at no cost to anyone here, including me, could come and speak. And we actually came early and talked to Dr. Perkins for about 20-30 minutes beforehand, and she described the issues that we've had, such that he was in tune to what was needed to be said. And that was all there was to it.
Thank you, Ms. Bean. Second question that came up, and again, in a number of ways, but just aggregating this, why were parents not given more say in the decision to bring Mr. Kennedy on campus?
Every parent was given the option to make the choice for their individual child. With the permission forms that were sent out, we, as we have listened to you all, we listened to all of our parents as well. And so we did allow parents to opt in or opt out. And so we provided them an opportunity to make the choice that they felt was right for their child.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Another question regarding permission forms. Why did students receive the parents' permission form?
First, I want to apologize for that. It was requested by me from the school that permission form be sent to parents. However, the campus inadvertently sent it to students, and I apologize for that and definitely take ownership. I have definitely been in conversation with campus administration on ensuring that we do not make that mistake again.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Another question from a number of parents regarded security, and specifically, quote, why would we bring in someone who would create a safety risk for our students and require additional security?
We did not feel that bringing Coach Kennedy presented a safety issue. We're also aware that he had spoken the previous day with some high school students, some high school boys, and we had not received any type of evidence that any of his speaking engagements caused for any type of safety concerns. However, when parents reached out to me and expressed that they had concerns in listening to the parents and listening and considering everyone's feelings, we decided to bring in security during the time of the assembly.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. And one thing that came up on October 8th from a few different parents was questions about 3 men specifically in blue suits who attended the assembly, and questions about who they were, what they were doing on campus, did they follow visitor protocols to campus, etc. Can you speak to who those men were?
First of all, everyone that walks into our building on any day, including October the 6th, they go through our Raptor system where they provide us with their driver's license. It just ran through the system so that we can ensure that they are allowed to be on campus. After reviewing the videos as well as our sign-in sheets, 2 of those men were there to do financial presentation in math classes, Dr. Malosky and Dr. Scuster. They had presented in previous years to the math classes. They did not attend the assembly. They were only there for their financial presentation. The third gentleman was Mr. Bean, Cheryl Bean's husband. And we verified that through our videos as well as our sign-in sheets.
Thank you. Ms. Bean, this one's for you. Why would we bring a speaker for First Liberty, and this is a quote, a MAGA and Christian organization, into the school to influence students when not all families align with these beliefs? Should we remain neutral, end quote?
Mm-hmm.
We are committed to remaining neutral, but neutral entirely, if you did that, would be saying nothing. Because we can't get 10 people in a room and have them agree on the same thing. So, y'all described him as a spokesperson for First Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a spokesperson for First Liberty. What he is First Liberty represented him at the Supreme Court and throughout those years. It also was misrepresented that First Liberty was a Christian organization and a MAGA organization. In reality, First Liberty, if you read it, represents all religious freedom. They have represented Muslims, they have represented Jewish people, and they have represented a whole variety of different people. It was not 100% tied to Christianity. Was Coach Kennedy in Christianity? Yes. But that was not a topic of conversation presented, nor was First Liberty brought up. That was research that I guess people did looking back into Coach Kennedy's past. But our intent was not to push an agenda. Our intent was fully to talk about bullying, and that's what he did.
That's the website that they sent, was First
Thank you, Ms.
Liberty.
Bean. Dr. Perkins, why would we bring in a person who is not a mental health expert to speak about abortion or women's rights and suicide? Question from the parents coming on October 8th.
To bring context to Coach Kennedy's speech, he did not speak about abortion. He started his speech on October the 6th explaining that he had been raised in the foster care system because neither one of his parents wanted him. In addition to that, he did not speak specifically to anything as it relates to any type of abortion or anything that was said. In addition to that, he said very specifically later on in his story, after he went through the process of explaining how he had grew up in foster care and how that caused him to be very resentful and angry regarding his situation, and that himself became a bully until he met a friend in high school. And a young man in high school befriended him, offered him clothes, offered him new shoes, offered him a whole remake of his appearance. And he said he was so envious of that young man because he had everything in life that he wished he had. He wished he had parents. He wished he came from an affluent home. And he said he thought that he wanted that young man's life. And then that young man ended up taking his own life and committing suicide. And he went on to explain to students, that's why we have to be very careful with our words and what we say to each other, because you never know underneath the surface what someone is going through. where you may look on the outside and think a person has everything made and their life is perfect. You never know what they're dealing with under the surface. And that was the context of the suicide, which bullying, the negative impact of bullying can be suicide. In addition to that, the comment was made that he was paying students to follow him. What he said in the assembly was, the only artsy situation I have, or what I can share with you all with my art background, would be I was in a movie. It was just a cameo role. In fact, I tell all of the people at all of my speeches, if you can find me more than one time in the movie, I'll pay you $100. I have yet to have to pay anybody $100 because in all of my speeches, no one has been able to find me more than one time. And that was the context of the speech.
Can I interrupt to say something about the suicide?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to address Ms. Sobel. I understand what you said, however, that's not what occurred during that day. The question was, why would suicide even be mentioned? And my response was, suicide is an issue in schools today. We even have at least one instance in our school here in the bathroom. I said it, that's what I said. In fact, we've had multiple attempts at suicide in our schools.
You have no right to speak
I
on
was
your behalf.
not, excuse me,
Shame on you.
the rules are that I get to speak now. I never
You're
mentioned your
justifying
name.
it. You're justifying your actions that were wrong.
What part of, do you not understand that this is our turn to speak?
You're
Okay?
addressing her.
Period.
You're speaking directly to me and you're
I think it's time.
offending me.
I am sorry, your opinion, but the reality of it is, I did not know you or your child, nor did
Shame
I
on you.
mention you. Nor did I mention any child by name. The fact remains.
Stop. Stop.
Okay.
Stop.
Dr. Perkins, parents asked, what is the selection process for guest speakers at FWAFA?
Currently, the process is anytime we're approached for a guest speaker, it is at the discretion of the campus principal as well as myself to decide if they will be allowed to speak. We also then outline, based on our goals and issues that we have at our campus, of what the conversation needs to be about, in line with goals that we are trying to accomplish with our students. Now, going forward, as it was mentioned on October the 8th, a committee will be formed to look at any speakers in the future. The board will be working to outline a framework of the work that the committee will complete as it pertains to the committee that will create procedures going forward. And until that time, we'll halt all speakers coming into the building until the committee has been able to be formulated and be able to bring procedures to recommend to the board.
Hopefully that covers with political.
Thank you, Dr.
just
Perkins.
friends. She has room in the halls.
Speaking to, and I know that this has come up somewhat already this evening, but speaking to the qualifications of this particular speaker, can you share a little bit more about why he had a background or something that was of interest to the students at FWAFA?
Coach Kennedy has a background as a high school football coach. And those that have worked in the education field, you know that a coach is also a teacher hired to work in a school system. So Coach Kennedy has experience working with students as well as working with students through some of their trying times or some of their conflicts that they have with other students. And so definitely taking that into consideration as well as experience as a coach and being an entrusted confidant in students as they go through the various changes of their life. That was definitely a part that we felt, and I felt that he did have the adequate experience to speak on the topic. In addition, Coach Kennedy is an 18-year veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. He has a personal history of challenges in his life that he has had to overcome and that he shares with other students about deterring from bullying and changing their behaviors. And he's spoken publicly across the country. And so he has a background of being a public speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Ms. Bean, this one's for you. Why was the Texas Boys Choir allowed to perform at a political event? Quote, isn't this a conflict of interest with a board member, end quote.
Okay, I don't think currently there are any specific guidelines as to what kind of functions the voice choir can perform at. And in fact, I know for a fact they perform in theaters and in homes and in churches, all kinds of different occasions. In this particular case, the only reason that I offered up or asked if they would be interested in performing is because I knew a lot of very influential people, as well as a lot that are, let's say, financially able to afford the voice choir, would be present. And if they wanted to, that would give them more exposure. We asked that they come at the front of the performance and that they leave before it actually started, the event started at all. And so they did. They came very first. I introduced them, they sang, and they left as the pledges were being said, and they were gone at that point forward. And as I had hoped, there are other opportunities coming up for the voice choir in that they were able to perform at a function at the Bowie Theater just a couple of weeks later. And that was a nonpartisan, secular event where there are, once again, some of the wealthiest donors across the state of Texas, as well as some people of great influence across the state of Texas, and other opportunities will probably come from that. There will also, we already know a couple of other opportunities coming. One is for the United Way, and another is for Salvation Army. Has nothing to do with anything, and that's all it was. It was simply a question of getting more exposure and the ability for the voice to earn some money.
They just did a Sarah Huckabee rally.
Thank you, Ms. Bean. Number 11 is for you, Dr. Perkins. Why are we hanging the 10 Commandments signs in the school classrooms and willing to risk losing good teachers? Haven't some schools avoided it by suing the state? If we hang biblical signs, shouldn't we also hang other religious signage such as Muslim, Buddhist, etc.?
Mm-hmm.
Where it came into play for hanging of the 10 Commandments came out of the 89th legislative session. State Bill 10 outlines that all school systems must hang the 10 Commandments, and it gives the specifications once those 10 Commandments are donated to a school system. If you look at the law, you will see that it does not say anything pertaining to any other religions. It outlines specifically the 10 Commandments. Also, our state attorney general, Ken Paxton, emailed all school systems, and this email was shared with all of our employees as well. And we were notified that if we were not a part already of the litigation that is going on regarding the 10 Commandments, and he outlined the 13 districts that he was referring to, then he ordered that we ensure that 10 Commandments are posted in our school systems in our class.
Thank you. And just to follow up from the legal compliance perspective, there's not a discretionary aspect to SB 10 or what's now Education Code 1.0041. It's if an organization or if a district or public charter school gets a poster donated to them, of which there were multiple organizations that donated posters to TCAA, then they have to put them in a conspicuous place on the classroom wall, or they're in violation of the law. So there are no caveats for personal belief or in order to open a forum for other religious texts. There was some discussion in the legislature earlier on in the bill's life where there was inclusion of other legislative text or other religious texts, and that was specifically stricken from or by the legislature as it moved through to its final form. So the law itself solely requires posting of the 10 Commandments, and that's why the decision was made to post the 10 Commandments. Sorry, still me. Okay, Dr. Perkins. Parents shared also in earlier October concern regarding employees being hired and concerns regarding their social media. Can you speak a little bit to that, please?
So, to address that, from October the 8th, the comment was made of what is the district doing to ensure that we hire and we make sure we do our due diligence for the employees that we are hiring. And that has been addressed by creating a new policy where all district employees, whether for FWAFA, TCAA, must submit all of their social media handles so that if we receive a complaint or a concern from a colleague, a parent, a student, then we will be able to investigate social media and ensure that it follows our social media policy.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Another parent question regarding mandatory training and pre-service affidavits. And if it's all right, I'd like to speak to that one. So the mandatory training requirements and pre-service affidavits really speak to or are binding for applicants for employment or service providers who engage in routine, regular interactions with the entity, not one-time interactions with the entity. And so for that reason, Mr. Kennedy did not fit in this particular case. And so, nor would any other one-time speaker trainer. For example, I used to be in consulting where I would train schools. That wouldn't have applied to me either. And so for that reason, those things were not required of him or any other speaker that would come after him. And so just wanted to speak to that, to the legal compliance aspect of that. And then lastly, Dr. Perkins, the grievance procedures.
As mentioned, the grievance procedures are included and posted online via our student handbooks, which parents receive and acknowledge their receipt and that they have read and understand the components of the student handbook via a sender.
All right, thank you. And then lastly, Ms. Bean.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have something they want to say on this whole subject?
I didn't address them last
Okay.
time.
I want to say that I am personally glad that the Academy of Fine Arts encourages diversity of thought and expressions of, personal expressions of our students and our teachers, okay? And that's very critical to artists as we move forward. I think education is critical and our children are our future. So I think if we could learn to work to get it right and work together, we will do a much better job of that. Having said that, I think this concludes our board meeting, and thank